Stop tapping your foot. Stop chewing your lip. Stop looking at the clock. I can hear your mind from here. It is loud. It sounds like a beehive that has been kicked over. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 what-ifs, 1,000 scenarios of disaster playing on a loop behind your eyes. You are exhausted, aren't you? Not the kind of exhausted that comes from chopping wood or running a mile. No, that is a good kind of tired. That is a clean tired. You are exhausted because you have been fighting a war that doesn't exist. You have been running from a tiger that isn't chasing you. You have been holding up the ceiling because you are terrified it might fall down. Look at me. I am 106 years old. I have survived the Great Depression. I have survived World War II. I have survived droughts, floods, and financial ruin. I have buried a wife and 2 sons. I have earned the right to tell you the truth about your worry. You think your worry is protecting you. You think it is a shield. You tell yourself, if I worry about this problem enough, I will solve it. If I imagine the worst case scenario, I will be prepared. You are lying to yourself. Worry is not preparation. Worry is arrogance. Yes, arrogance. You think you are a prophet? You think you have the power to predict the future? You think that by replaying a conversation in your head at 3:00 a.m., you can change the outcome? I was the king of worry. If they gave out medals for anxiety, I would be a 5-star general. I spent 50 years of my life building a fortress. I laid every brick with my own hands. The bricks were made of fear. The mortar was made of doubt. I built walls so high that no sunlight could get in. I dug a moat so deep that no joy could cross it. I sat in my tower, watching the horizon, waiting for the enemy. I was ready. I had a plan for every disaster. I had a plan for bankruptcy. I had a plan for illness. I had a plan for losing my reputation. I was constantly scanning the tree line for the monsters. And do you know what happened? The monsters never came. The enemies I prepared for, they were phantoms. The disasters I lost sleep over, they never materialized, but the fortress was real, and I was the prisoner. I missed my life because I was too busy defending it. I missed the taste of my morning coffee because I was worrying about the afternoon meeting. I missed the laughter of my children because I was worrying about their college tuition that was 10 years away. I was a ghost in my own house. My body was at the dinner table cutting the roast beef, but my mind was 10 years in the future, fighting a battle that existed only in my imagination. You are doing the same thing. I see it. You are paying interest on a debt you never took out. That is what worry is. It is a tax you pay on things that haven't happened, and most of the time they never happen. I want to tell you about the summer of '54. I want to tell you about the drought that almost killed me, not because of the heat, but because of the fear. It was 1954. I had taken a gamble. I was a young man hungry for security. I mortgaged the house, the store, everything I had to buy a stake in 100 acres of cornfields just outside of town. I told my wife, Maria, this is it. One good harvest and we are set for life. One good harvest and we never have to worry about money again. I wanted to be safe. That is the irony. I wanted to buy peace of mind. Instead, I bought a ticket to hell. June came. The rain stopped. July came. The sky turned a bright, angry blue. Not a cloud, not a wisp of white, just that blinding, mocking blue staring down at me like an unblinking eye. The heat was heavy. It sat on your chest. You could taste the dust in your teeth. I became a man possessed. I became a meteorologist of misery. My entire existence shrank down to one thing, the weather. I would wake up at 4 o'clock a.m., soaked in sweat, and run to the window. I wasn't looking for beauty. I was looking for gray. I was looking for a storm. When I saw the stars shining clearly, my stomach would twist into a knot so tight I could barely breathe. I had a barometer in the hallway, an old brass instrument every morning. Before I even kissed my wife, I would walk to that barometer and tap the glass. Tap, 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 praying for the needle to drop, praying for low pressure. The needle never moved. It was stuck on fair. Fair! What a cruel word. I went to work at the store, but I wasn't really there. A customer would ask me for a pound of nails, and I would stare at him blankly, calculating how many days of water the soil had left. I was doing math in my head. If it doesn't rain by Tuesday, we lose 10%. If it doesn't rain by Friday, we lose 30%. If it doesn't rain by the 1st of August, I lose the house. I played the movie in my mind, the catastrophe movie. I directed it, I starred in it, and I watched it 100 times a day. Scene 1, the corn dies. Scene 2, the bank calls the loan. Scene 3, the sheriff puts a padlock on my front door. Scene 4, my wife and children are on the street, holding suitcases, looking at me with shame. You failed us, Salvatore. You failed. I lived in that movie. It felt so real. I could smell the shame. I could feel the cold of the street even in the middle of a heat wave. My wife tried to talk to me. She would put a hand on my shoulder while I stared at the dry brown lawn. Sal, she would say, come inside, eat dinner. It's out of your hands. I snapped at her. Out of my hands? Do you know what is at stake? Do you know we could lose everything? I thought she was naive. I thought she didn't understand the gravity of the situation. I thought my worry was work. I thought that by pacing the floorboards until they creaked, I was somehow pushing the clouds together by sheer force of will. I was convinced that if I stopped worrying even for a second, the disaster would happen. As if my anxiety was the gravity holding the world together. I stopped eating. I stopped laughing. I stopped living. I was a walking ulcer in a cheap suit. August came. The corn was brown. It rustled like paper in the hot wind. It was dead. The harvest was gone. The disaster I feared had happened. The crop failed, and then the phone rang. It was the bank. I prepared myself for the end. I prepared myself for the sheriff. I held the receiver with a shaking hand, waiting for the executioner. I picked up the phone. My hand was shaking so bad the receiver rattled against my ear. "Hello," I whispered. I sounded like a ghost. "Mr. Benedetto," the voice said. It was Mr. Henderson from the bank, a dry, boring man. "We've been looking at the agricultural reports. Tough year for everyone in the county." I closed my eyes. Here it comes, I thought. The axe falls now. "We can't extend the full line of credit," Henderson said. "But given your history with the hardware store, we can restructure the loan. We'll add 5 years to the term. Interest goes up a point. You can pay interest only for 6 months until you get back on your feet." I waited. "Is that acceptable, Mr. Benedetto?" I blinked. That's it." "That's it," he said. "Come in Tuesday to sign the papers." Click. I stood there in the hallway. The fan was whirring overhead. A fly was buzzing against the screen door. I was still standing. The house was still standing. My wife was in the kitchen, humming a tune while she peeled potatoes. I had spent 3 months in hell. I had spent 90 days sweating, shaking, and directing a tragedy in my mind where my children starved in the gutter. I had aged 10 years in a single summer, and the reality. The reality was a 5-minute phone call and some paperwork on a Tuesday. I felt something strange wash over me. It wasn't relief. It was shame. I felt like a fool. I had let a phantom steal 90 days of my life. The drought was real, yes. The money was gone, yes. That was a problem. But problems can be solved. Problems are just math and logistics. But worry is not a problem. Worry is a torture chamber you build for yourself. I realized then that the monster in my head was 10 times bigger, 10 times scarier, and 10 times louder than the monster in the room. The Roman philosopher Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." I had read that quote in school, I thought. It was just pretty words. But standing there, holding a dead phone receiver, I understood it in my bones. The reality of losing money was unpleasant. It meant we ate less meat that winter. It meant I worked longer hours at the store. It meant no new coat for me that Christmas. That was the reality. It was uncomfortable, but it was survivable. But the imagination told me I was a failure. The imagination told me my life was over. The imagination told me I was going to die alone in the cold. I looked at my hands. They were the same hands. I looked at my wife. She was the same woman. I walked into the kitchen. I sat down at the table. "Maria," I said, "the corn is dead." She stopped peeling. She looked at me. "I know, Sal. We lost the money," I said. "I know," she said. She put the knife down. "But are we healthy?" "Yes." "Are the boys safe?" "Yes." "Then we haven't lost everything," she said. She went back to the potatoes. Chop, chop, chop. I watched her. and I realized she had been living in reality the whole time, while I was living in a nightmare of my own creation. That night it rained. The irony was not lost on me. The harvest was dead, the papers were signed, the disaster was confirmed, and then the sky opened up. I stood on the porch and watched the water fall. It was heavy, cool, and relentless. It soaked the dead stalks. It turned the dust into mud. I laughed. It was a bitter laugh, but it was a laugh. I realized something profound looking at that rain. The rain didn't care about my pacing. The rain didn't care about my sleepless nights. The rain didn't care about my barometer. I had spent 90 days trying to control the universe with my anxiety. I thought if I worried hard enough, I could force the clouds to gather. But the universe does not negotiate with your fear. The universe does what it wants. I had built a fortress to keep out the pain, but all I had done was lock myself in the dark. I made a decision that night. I decided to tear the fortress down, brick by brick. It wasn't easy. You don't cure an addiction to worry overnight. It is a habit etched into your brain like a riverbed. When a problem arises, your mind wants to flow down that familiar path of panic, but I started to catch myself. When the store roof leaked in 1962, I started to spiral. What if the timber rots? What if the inventory is ruined? I stopped. I literally said stop to the empty room. I asked myself one question, a question that saved my sanity for the next 40 years. Is this a problem I can solve, or is this a gravity problem? If I can fix it, I fix it. I get a ladder. I get a bucket. I get some tar. Action kills anxiety. You cannot worry when you are working. But if it is a gravity problem, if it is something I cannot change like the weather or the economy or the mood of my mother-in-law, then I accept it. You cannot fight gravity. If you fight gravity, you will only break your back. I learned to float. I learned that 99% of the things I was terrified of were paper tigers. They looked scary. They roared. But when you poked them, they crumpled. And the 1% that were real tigers, the real tragedies, the deaths, the illnesses, worrying didn't make them easier. When my wife got sick years later, worry didn't cure her. Worry didn't buy us more time. It only stole the peace from the time we had left. I refused to let it in. I sat by her bed. I held her hand. I told her jokes. I was present. If I had spent those last months worrying about the end, I would have missed the middle, and the middle. That is where the life is. I stopped building fortresses. I started building a garden. A fortress is safe, but nothing grows there. A garden is vulnerable. Frost can come, bugs can come, but flowers grow there. Life grows there. I chose the garden. Now I am looking at you again. I want you to take a breath, a real one, in through the nose. Hold it out through the mouth. Do you feel that? That is air. That is life. That is happening right now. You are not in the future. You are not in the past. You are here, but your mind. Your mind is a time traveler. It is running a marathon in a race that hasn't started yet. I want you to think about the thing that is keeping you awake at night, the monster. Maybe it is a text message you are afraid to send. Maybe it is a bank statement you are afraid to open. Maybe it is a lump you found and are too scared to show. A doctor. You are sitting in the dark, imagining the worst. You are writing a tragedy where you are the victim. Stop it. You are not a victim of the future. You are the architect of the present. I want you to look around the room you are in. Is the roof falling down? No. Is there a tiger in the corner? No. Are you starving? No. You are safe. In this exact second, you are safe. The only danger is inside your skull. So here is my challenge to you. It is simple, but it is hard. Pick one thing you are worried about, just one. Is it a bill? Open the envelope. Is it a difficult conversation? Pick up the phone. Is it a project you are afraid to start? Write the first sentence. Action is the antidote to anxiety. You cannot be afraid when you are moving. Do not sit in your fortress and wait for the enemy. Open the gate. Walk out into the field. Most of the things you fear are shadows. They disappear when you shine a light on them and the things that are real. You will handle them. You are stronger than you think. You have survived 100% of your bad days so far. Don't waste your life preparing for a storm that might never come. And if it does come, you will get wet. You will dry off. You will survive. But you will never get back the time you spent staring at the sky. Put down the bricks. Stop building walls. Go outside. Feel the sun on your face. It is warm. It is real, and it is yours. Go.